Well, hi there, welcome back to Mudwalkers. Today we're talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 8, which is kind of a parallel passage to Romans chapter 14, talking about the same basic thing, but it's much more concise, and Paul writes out his thoughts here a little bit differently, and it kind of clarifies what he means about Romans chapter 14, in case there are any doubts. But before we get started, if you're not already a Patreon member, check out the link in the description. You get early access to all my videos if you become a Patreon member. We have really affordable tiers. Go ahead and check the link out. Without further ado, let's go ahead and read the passage, just so we have a basic familiarity of what we're talking about and we can see exactly what he says. Okay, so he says, "Now concerning food offered to idols, we know that all of us possess knowledge. This knowledge, quote unquote, puffs up, but love builds up. If anyone imagines that he knows something, he does not yet know the way he should know. But if anyone loves God, he is known by God." So, about the eating of food offered to idols. We know that an idol has no real existence, and there is no God but one, for although there may be so-called gods in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet for us there is only one God, the Father, from whom are all things and for whom we exist, and one Lord, Jesus Christ, Yeshua the Messiah, the Anointed One, through whom are all things and through whom we exist. But not everyone has this knowledge. But some, through former association with false gods, eat food as if it was really offered to that false god, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. Food will not commend us to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat, and we are no better off if we do eat. But be careful that this right of yours does not somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. Stumbling block, weak, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you see the similar language here. For if someone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged, if his conscience is weak, to eat food offered to idols? And so, through your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed, the brother for whom Christ died. So, sitting against your brothers and wounding their consciences when they are weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. I would even add in here, I will never eat such meat, because it's clear what meat he's talking about. So you can see in this final paragraph in chapter 8, Paul is really, really close to what he says in Romans chapter 14. He talks about the weak brother, the weak conscience, eating and not eating. He talks about stumbling blocks, talking about our liberties versus the consciences of others, food offered to idols. So notice what he says here. For if someone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged with his weak conscience to eat food offered to idols? This is not about someone saying, "Oh look, Bob is eating food offered to idols. I'm deeply offended. Bob, don't you know that that's wrong? Oh, I would never eat that. I would never do it. I'm not going to do it. But Bob, don't you know that that's wrong? I'm offended, brother. You're in danger of your soul if you're eating all of this idol meat." That's not what Paul's talking about. He's talking about someone who believes that the gods are still real, that they are bad, but that they are real, and that these sacrifices actually mean something still. And so, because they don't quite get it, they don't get that these are false gods, they don't even really exist as gods, that these sacrifices are worthless and meaningless, they don't actually have any effect. So, when this person who believes these things are still real sees you eating that meat, and they say, "Oh, well, that's bad, that's immoral, but I guess, I guess I'll do it one time. I'll go back and I'll eat, the sacrifice to Zeus or whatever gods it was. I don't know, but I guess I'll go back and eat one or two sacrifices because Bob is doing it, and I'll go and do that, and then this other brother, this weak brother, goes in and he actually does the thing. And so in this, by your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed, the brother for whom Christ died. Sinning against your brothers and wounding his conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. So, what Paul is getting at is, do not ever, never, ever. Have I said ever enough times, or never? So, never ever do this. Don't do something that you know someone else thinks is wrong in that person's presence and cause that person to engage in the same behavior with you. No, it is separate. The faith that you have, like in Romans chapter 14, the faith that you have, keep between yourself and God. If you know that this person is weak and will be tempted to engage in this behavior with you against the witness of that person's own conscience, keep that person separate, out of the picture. And you keep your faith between you and God. And you can live in your Christian liberty. You can still be here. You can still live in your Christian liberty. Go on and eat meat. They're not even gods, Paul says. So what does that mean to you? There's only one God. So who cares if there was a sacrifice? It's beef, bro. Go ahead and eat beef. It's good. So you're over here. Let your beefy liberty be between you and God. But this person over here who thinks that bull was offered to one of the Greek gods, no. You stay over there. I'll do this by myself and not involve you. You stay out of the picture. And we'll be okay. We'll coexist as brothers. You think it would be wrong for you to do it. Fine. That's fine. Absolutely. Totally. You stay over there. You do your thing. I'll be over here and I'll eat the meat. So, to draw it all back to a point. I'm a nudist. I like to be naked. I like to be naked outside in nature and with other people. Lots of other people could not do this. Under their own consciences. They just could not stand it. It would be sin to them to try and do that. And so I told a good Christian brother recently, brother, please don't. Do not try naturism. Wow, my hands are huge. Look at that. I told him, don't do it. Do not try this. Because I know, and based on what you've said, this would break you. This would break your conscience, violate your conscience. Do not do it. I told him, I do this because I am fully convinced in my own mind, look that up in Romans 14, I am fully convinced in my own mind that this is not wrong. It's unforbidden, and I'm convinced that I'm not doing anything wrong. So, there's no rule against it, and my conscience is clear. So according to Romans 14 and 1 Corinthians 8, I'm well within my rights to go and do the thing. But, since you believe the thing is immoral, I refuse to do it around you. I refuse to harm you in that way and risk destroying my brother for whom Christ died. The destruction here is the wounding of this person's conscience, the endangerment, the jeopardization of this person's relationship with Yahweh. That is sacred. That is not your business. It's not my business to try and meddle in your relationship with God. No. The faith that you have, keep between yourself and God. Your relationship with God, that's yours. So it's not my job to try and thrust something upon you that's going to harm your conscience. No. That's very, very wrong, and that's something that Paul was adamantly against in Romans chapter 14 and 1 Corinthians chapter 8. But like we see even more clearly in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, the thing that Paul is trying to avoid is one person doing something that is fine and unforbidden, but not doing it around the weak person, because the weak person might be drawn into it against the witness of that person's own conscience. So the person with the weak conscience should be kept separate from this behavior, although the behavior is fine and the behavior can continue. Don't allow this person to get drawn into it, and don't do it around these people. Keep that person separate and keep your faith between you and God. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to educate people. By all means, have discussions, debate people even. We should be able to talk about things in dialogue, but that doesn't mean that with the exact thing that we're talking about with this good Christian friend of mine, if I'm talking to him about it, that doesn't mean that I take him by the arm and say, okay, here we go. We're going to go over here now. We're going to go to the naturist resort there. Take your pants off. Look, there's a naked woman. You come over here and you talk to her. Look her in the eyes. There you go. There. What do you mean you're lusting? No. No, just take deep breaths. That would be like the worst thing to do. Don't do that. Your conscience is your conscience. That person's conscience is that person's conscience. The faith that you have, keep between yourself and God, but don't let these behaviors draw other people in against the witnesses of their own consciences. By all means, avoid that. At this point, I think I've started to ramble, so I think you know what time. Yeah, I can't stress that enough, that Paul's emphasis here is that the way the weak brother is destroyed is by eating. You know, if your weak brother sees you eating that kind of meat, won't he be encouraged to eat the meat and thereby destroy himself? So, yeah, the emphasis here is very much on eating is the means of destruction, and therefore stumbling. Yeah, so next time someone brings up 1 Corinthians chapter 8 in terms of not making someone stumble, or Romans chapter 14 for that matter, Romans 14, 1 Corinthians 8, Next time someone brings up Romans 14, bring up 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Next time someone brings up 1 Corinthians chapter 8, point them to verses 10 and 11. Verses 10 and 11 taken together makes it pretty clear that what Paul is getting at is that someone participating in the thing against the person's own conscience, that's ultimately the same thing as stumbling. To participate is to stumble, and then as a result of the stumbling, the person is condemned / destroyed. So participation is really the key thing. But that's basically a repetition of the point of the video, so I'm kind of rambling, so I think you know what time it is. This episode of Mudwalkers is brought to you by Naturism, Todd, Jacob, Jay Sweets, Edward, John S., Joseph, Charlie, Lionheart, Jesse, Adam, Edward T, Nate, Jay Good, Cyan, John W, Clifton, Trev, Scott, none here, Alan, Marty, Hank, Joseph G, Squirrel, literally, Joseph G, Flavio, Austin, Martin, and Gabriel. Thank you all so much for what you're doing on Patreon. You guys are making all this revolve around the sun. You're making all this happen. You're keeping my work sustainable. So thank you for all you're doing on Patreon. If you are not already a Patreon member, check out the link in the description to check out our tiers. Very affordable. You can also check out the benefits there. There'll be a video directing you to information about the tiers. With that, the video is pretty much over, so I'm going to cut it off here. Have a great day. I will see you in the next one. There is a spider on my back. Come on. Don't make me kill you. Hi. This is a North American jumping spider. My favorite animal. Where'd you go? There you are. Look how cute!